Jason Reynolds' Look Both Ways is not a school story per se, although it does have some scenes that take place inside of a school. And it also has a running joke about a school bus falling from the sky. But it's really about the walkers, the kids that walk home from school, and that 15 or 20-minute window of time that they have to go from school to home, and all the kinds of mischief they get into, the trials and troubles they endure, and the triumphs they achieve. It's a big-hearted book that begs to be read aloud, like a lot of Reynolds' work, and I'd love to share with you about it today. See you after the jump. Hi, welcome to Junior Lit Gems. I'm Gary, a 4th and 5th grade teacher. And today I want to talk about Jason Reynolds' Look Both Ways, a tale told in 10 blocks. Reynolds is one of the prominent African-American authors at the forefront of what I would consider kind of a renaissance in African-American young adult and mid-grade fiction, containing also the likes of Jacqueline Woodson and Kwame Alexander, Varian Johnson, among others. But Jason Reynolds has came to my attention through the track series, which the first novel, Ghost, I read aloud to my 4th grade class a couple years ago, and his language just leaps off the page. He's got the soul of a poet and so much heart and empathy for his characters, just really sculpts them in a beautiful way that they just leap off the page. He also collaborated with Kendi on Stamped about anti-racism and racist ideas through American history. But Look Both Ways is an episodic short story collection, which is close to my heart, that type of book. I grew up reading a lot of Ray Bradbury. This reminds me of some of Ray Bradbury, even though that might be a little bit of a left field reference. But Ray Bradbury wrote a couple books like Dandelion Wine and Martian Chronicles that had a similar episodic structure. This contains 10 interwoven stories that take place in the same 15-20-minute span of time after school on one particular day as the students walking home. As the students are walking home from middle school. And the neat thing about it is that they're interwoven in a way that the characters don't necessarily and actually rarely interact with each other, but you can get glimpses of characters in one story in another story if you just pay attention to what's going on. They are name checked, they're referenced, that you might even... There's a story where a girl says that somebody had pulled a handful of roses out of a bush. And later on, one of the characters in another story is the one who yanks the handful of flowers out of the bush. So it's like they're all interwoven in a neat way. And you feel like in one scene you might be watching an interaction, and behind them he might mention something flashing by. And later on you realize what that was. It was another character from another story. So it's really neat how he structures them. That's one of the real joys of the novel, of the collection, I guess. Its audience is primarily middle school. It's got some complicated themes that would be a little more difficult for elementary readers to relate to, but it's mostly about the trials and joys of life and friendship. Some of the highlight stories I really wanted to mention: the Low Cuts, Strike Again, a group of kids who are all children of cancer patients, and they steal coins, but not in a malicious way, and they parlay those coins into candy from a candy lady, and they parlay the candy into making more money by selling the candy, and then they buy ice cream to give to a parent who's suffering through chemotherapy. So it's a really touching story, and the characters are so finely and richly drawn. Call of Duty is a story about a couple of boys who are very tender and sweet, even though they are really good at the Call of Duty computer game. And they have a run-in at school, sorry, where one of them gets kissed on the cheek, and there's a misunderstanding that causes them to actually draw closer, and it's a very touching way that they relate. How to Look Both Ways is, I guess, the title, story of the collection, and it's about a girl, Fatima Moss, and her walk home from school. She's a very meticulous note taker, and she remembers everything that's different every day, and it's a very it's a very life affirming story. And there's a character named Benny who's like a street performer, musician type lady that might be considered a little odd in some circles, but in New York City on the street that might be a normal thing. And she's just so full of life, and she says, "How you gonna change the world?" And that's the quote on the back of the book. And it's just it's so much life screaming from that quote, and her songs and the way that she relates to people walking by. It's just like very beautiful. Simeon and Kenzie's Secret Handshake is a great story about two boys who've a 2-minute long handshake that they do, and they're just so such good friends, and the way they relate is just really, it's really touching and cool. How their neighborhood is described in their friendship, and that kind of teenage friendship that is so sweet and innocent, yet so tight. I've been talking to my young writers a lot about writing with sensory details, and Kenzie and Simeon story has a great segment that I just want to read, because it's hard to talk about Jason Reynolds' work without reading aloud a little bit. This is just a segment from Simeon and Kenzie's Secret Handshake. The way Kenzie and Simeon thought about it, Chestnut Street is a paradise. Light poles are like palm trees, bus stop benches like hammocks, and corner stores like island bungalows. There's a smell in the air, a mix of exhaust and exhaustion. Also cooked food and cooked hair. There's a feel in the air, a stickiness like walking through an invisible syrup, a thickness to life. There's a sound in the air, a shrill and a chill. The scream and whisper of the world making a symphony of so good and so what. Also the sound of Kenzie and Simeon, their voices still young, still sweet, like flutes cutting through. So you get the sense it's just a real poetic feeling of the language and describing the senses and sounds and all the parts of the neighborhood as they walk home. And it's just it's a wonderful blend of language and soul and vibrancy that is present in all of the stories in Look Both Ways. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do consider liking and subscribing. Oh, I forgot to mention, it's also dedicated to Eloise Greenfield, which is, who is just a giant of African-American poetry for young people and all ages. She passed away in August. Eloise, rest in peace. And Jason and she share a lot in the way that they express the common life and speech of African-American people in letters and life, love, and literature. So take care. Hope you'll tune in again next time, and happy reading.